Now, what in the Carnival is going on here? So, Carnival Cruise Line has sent out a warning to all of its cruise passengers that plan to sail during a very busy cruise season coming up. Now, I am going to briefly go over what Carnival is putting out in these emails that they are sending. However, I am going to more so talk about what this actually means for the future of Carnival Cruise Lines, as I believe this is going to be somewhat of a make or break type of situation. By the way, quick update and reminder for all you fine folk, I have safely made it to downtown Buenos Aires, Argentina for my upcoming cruise to Antarctica with Atlas Oceans. I will be documenting the entire experience every single day on my other channel, Jay the Nomad. Make sure you guys go subscribe over to that one, because the only footage you'll see of that ship on this channel will of course be my news videos that I do almost daily for all of you, so you'll see some of the surroundings and brief updates here and there, as well as my final review of the entire experience from top to bottom. I'll go over the prices, I'll go over of course my personal experience, the review of the cruise line, the good, the bad, the ugly, all that jazz. You guys know how I do it. Now, of course, if you guys want any behind the scenes photos and information, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as low as $2 a month, as well as getting early access to those videos of my time on board Atlas Ocean's Navigator. So when it comes to the topic at hand with Carnival Cruise Line, the problem, the conundrum that they have been dealing with, I want to say since about the last quarter of 2022, by that I mean October, November, December, Carnival has been arguably cracking down and changing some of their rules and policies in hopes of possibly potentially having a better overall environment on all Carnival ships, because many could argue, myself included, since I've been on older ships, smaller ships, as well as the newer, larger ships with Carnival Cruise Lines, it isn't exactly the best vibe on board. There's fights all the time. Well, not all the time, but we all see, unfortunately, on social media, it does kind of give that picture that potentially this is what's happening on all ships. I don't think it is, but you guys get what I'm saying here. It's just kind of giving an image to Carnival Cruise Line that isn't exactly favorable. So in lieu of that situation and the potential situations that may arise on Carnival ships, Carnival is cracking down in arguably an aggressive manner, stating that when it comes to the fights and disorderly conduct, they are going to be cracking down by way of penalties, meaning they're going to be fining people that are accused of doing these acts on board their ships up to $500 per offense, and potentially be banned from Carnival Cruise Line for life, as well as potentially facing criminal charges, of course being arrested. Many have argued, myself included, that $500 in the grand scheme of things is a significant amount of money, but it's not enough to deter passengers from potentially fighting, throwing hands, scraps or fisticuffs, whatever it is that you want to call it. Now also, when it comes to the drugs, there has been a problem on Carnival ships. Many would argue, for those that don't indulge in the ganja, saying that every time they go on the ships in the smoking area, all they can smell is weed on the ships, and even down in the hallways and inside of the cruise ship. Carnival has stated that they're going to have more drug sniffing dogs, and they're going to be cracking down on that problem as well. Also, a controversial change that did take place on select ships. Carnival is stating that on select cruises, and one example of this was a Super Bowl cruise, they are not going to be allowing speakers to be played on some of their ships. However, that turned out to be, well, wrong, as I was on a Super Bowl cruise back in February, and there were speakers all over the place. They got in either way, even though they were confiscating, or allegedly confiscating all of them, they still got on board. Now, here's the big issue. Carnival has a lot to prove when it comes to these rules and changes and emails and crackdowns that they are allegedly saying they're going to be doing. We do have one of the first peak seasons of 2023. That, of course, is booze cruise season. Some of you common folk out there might call it spring break, but this is when you are going to have a lot of cruisers being on board. The ships are going to be sold out, they're going to be packed, some oversold. I'm going to talk about that with Royal Caribbean tomorrow. But when you have this, it is of course going to bring a lot of new and, let's be honest, ignorant cruisers that simply don't know cruise etiquette, and they are going to act out breaking the rules on Carnival ships. I do believe that the reality is, in this case with Carnival, no matter how many rules you implement or change, there are a lot of people out there that believe rules are meant to be broken. So people are going to break the rules when it comes to sneaking drugs on board, sneaking their speakers on board, and, well, just having some form of disorderly conduct in the way of being aggressive, fighting, and not giving the overall vacation vibe that many of you out there may actually want, where you're paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for your vacation. But it's one of those situations now that Carnival has to show up. You can't be all bark and no bite. You can't implement these rules and not actually follow through with them. And now everybody has their eyeballs on what the environment is going to be like on all Carnival ships, and if Carnival doesn't come with it, then it's just going to look bad on them. I think we all can agree to that. Being devil's advocate here, or looking at the opposite side of things, there are, believe it or not, cruisers out there that would argue that there is nothing wrong with Carnival ships. They like the ratchet, they like the loud music, they like the potential for fights on board because it does provide some form of entertainment. We all know there are people out there like that, and it's not an issue of race or anything like that. There are just some people that are rowdy. There are some people that enjoy the idea of seeing people argue and fight and be rambunctious on board cruise ships. Now, the problem is Carnival allowed this situation to kind of manifest. If it is something that they didn't want, they shouldn't have allowed it to kind of happen and create itself to begin with. I have argued that if you look at a cruise line like Royal Caribbean, they do have some technical issues, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow, but they have made it clean and clear as far as the overall vibe and environment that they want on ships by way of hiring influencers, bringing them on the ships, people with big names and people that do have the ability to kind of sway what the environment is going to be like once people actually board these ships. I'm not saying that is the way that Carnival should go about it. However, Carnival has highlighted, and many would argue that social media is a big influential point on how people conduct themselves, because if they see what's going on by way of Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, they may try to replicate whatever acts are taking place on board or whatever scenario, whatever vacation environment in which they see and portrayed on board the ships, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how they go about it. Just to give you guys an example, yesterday I was on my flight over here to Buenos Aires, Argentina from Miami, and we were flying Aerolíneas Argentina. Now, it's my first time flying with this airline, but we had an issue right out of the gate on our flight. There was a couple that decided to vape, do electronic cigarettes on board the flight before we took off. Now, some of you may say, well, it's not a big deal. Just tell them to put it away or confiscate it and go on about your merry way. Don't interrupt the flight or make us have to spend more time on the plane than we actually did, since we had a 9-hour flight. So get this, while we were on the runway getting ready to take off, literally getting ready to fly away, head over to Buenos Aires, the plane turned around and taxied back over to the area in which we started at, and I think it's called the jet bridge, whatever it's called. They opened up the jet bridge and they kicked those passengers off and let everybody know why it was happening. Of course, everybody was irritated and frustrated. There may potentially have been some people out there that says, what's the big deal? It's just an electronic cigarette, just get rid of it. But this is how you set a standard. If you have rules that you are saying people have to abide by, and you don't punish those people and make it very clear that these are the rules and we're going to stick to them, naturally a lot of people are going to say, hey, well, I guess this is okay. Imagine if they let those people stay on board. Imagine how many people would go tell their friends about it, and how many other people would just go ahead and say, well, hey, if anything, they're just going to take it away if we get caught. And it's going to cause, I want to say, a snowball effect, a wildfire of people that believe that, well, they're not going to get kicked off the plane, they're not going to get put on the no-fly list, they're just going to get their electric cigarette or vaporizer, whatever it is they're calling it, confiscated, and they're going to go on about their merry way. That is not the correct way to do it. I feel like such a nerd talking about all this stuff, but I'm just being honest with you guys and talking about what's going on as far as the rules and policies that Carnival is trying to implement, especially for this very, very, very busy spring break season. But I do want to hear from all of you. I'm not going to keep rambling on. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on all of this. Of course, hit that like button on your way out. Know that I love and appreciate every single one of you, and I'm so excited for my upcoming cruise to Antarctica. It's going to be a cold one. It's about 100 degrees here, right? At least that's going to be the high, 97, and then we're going to negative 35 up to negative 40 degree weather. Whew, talk about a quick turnaround as far as the temperature. But anyway, guys, I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you later. Take it easy.